Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. So on this channel we always get really interesting what-if scenario requests, and today I want to do one of those. What if Obi Wan Kenobi had left the Jedi Order for Duchess Satine Kryze? Now, the two have a very complicated relationship that goes back to when Obi Wan Kenobi was just a young Padawan.
You and Satine have a history.
An extended mission when I was younger. Master Qui-Gon and I spent a year on Mandalore, protecting the Duchess from insurgents who had threatened her world. They sent bounty hunters after us. We were always on the run, living hand to mouth, never sure what the next day would bring.
Sounds romantic.
And like any two people who are stuck together for an extended period of time facing grave danger, Obi-Wan and Satine developed some very strong feelings for one another. But those feelings weren't just primal urges and teenage romance. Obi-Wan had a genuine respect for Satine.
A civil war killed most of Satine's people, hence her aversion to violence. When she returned, she took on the difficult task of rebuilding her world alone.
As much as Obi-Wan Kenobi loved Satine, it was against the Jedi Code, and Obi-Wan Kenobi was the epitome of selflessness.
You didn't stay to help her.
That would have been problematic. My duty as a Jedi demanded I be elsewhere.
Demanded? But it's obvious you had feelings for her. Surely that would affect your decision.
Oh, it did. I live by the Jedi Code.
Of course. As Master Yoda says, a Jedi must not form attachments.
I mean, after all, the guy spent 20 years in the desert looking after some kid after being given some very vague instructions from Yoda, whose competence was clearly under question after he let most of the Jedi Order get destroyed in one day. If he can follow an order as ridiculous as that one, can't really imagine him leaving the Jedi Order.
I've loved you from the moment you came to my aid all those years ago.
I don't believe this.
Satine, this is hardly the time or place for... All right. Had you said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order.
Perhaps that's why the Jedi Order was so afraid of love. If it could make someone like Obi Wan Kenobi leave the Jedi Order, imagine what it'll do to someone who's a lot less stable and mature. Oh yeah, there's that guy. But what if Satine, after hearing Obi Wan Kenobi profess his love for her, does ask him to leave the Jedi Order? What if one of the most noble Jedi in the entire Order turns his back on the Republic and joins the Duchess in her neutrality and objection of the Clone Wars? As a trusted advisor and bodyguard for Satine Kryze, Obi Wan Kenobi would significantly change the path that Mandalore would go on. His more realistic approach to foreign policy would level out Satine's extreme pacifism.
Even extremists can be reasoned with.
Perhaps if one can be heard over the clanking of their battle droids.
Oh, the sarcasm of a soldier.
The delusion of a dreamer.
And allow the Mandalorians to properly defend themselves from Death Watch and Maul's attempt to eventually take over the planet. Obi-Wan's successful defense of Mandalore would elevate him to the same level as Satine Kryze, at least in the eyes of the Mandalorian people. And slowly after that, Obi-Wan would re-establish the planet's standing army. And while his presence will be missed in the Jedi Order, Obi-Wan Kenobi's place could have easily been taken by Anakin and Ahsoka. While Obi-Wan Kenobi was a talented fighter, what made him special was his ability to grasp the larger picture. Anakin and Ahsoka were equal to, if not better fighters than Obi-Wan Kenobi. So whether it was the mission to the Citadel or Palpatine's kidnapping, the timeline would not have changed that significantly without Obi-Wan Kenobi in the picture. After all, everything was all a part of Palpatine's plan in the first place. And with Obi-Wan Kenobi at Duchess Satine's side to protect her, Maul never would have had the opportunity to kill her in the first place.
Just a flesh wound.
Also, the Jedi Purge would still occur uninterrupted. The only difference is Obi-Wan Kenobi will be watching these events unfold from the safety of Mandalore. Obi-Wan Kenobi never returns to the Jedi Temple with Yoda and watches the security footage of Anakin slaughtering all those younglings. He never goes to inform Padme about what happens, and Padme never goes to Mustafar to confront Anakin, and Anakin doesn't duel Obi Wan Kenobi. The only reason Anakin chokes Padme in the first place is because he sees Obi Wan Kenobi come off the ship after her, and assumes that they're having a relationship behind his back. So what would have happened then? Well, Anakin would have returned from his business trip to Mustafar with all of his limbs intact and hopefully be there in time to see Padme give birth. Padme would have been preoccupied by the Jedi Purge, but she'd be clueless about Anakin's turn to the dark side. She also hasn't been assaulted by her husband, so most likely she wouldn't have died from a broken heart. Which actually can happen. The medical term is called Texubo cardiomyopathy, or something. It was either that or Palpatine exploded her heart from long distance. We'll never know. Anyway, whatever suspicions Padme had about Anakin will have to wait, because now they have more important things to worry about. Their parents, and their perception on everything has completely changed. And just because Anakin is a Sith doesn't necessarily mean he's evil and will be a terrible father. A Sith simply gives into their emotions, whereas a Jedi restrains them. While Anakin will be able to have more anger and hatred, he'll also have more love, especially for his wife and his kids. And now his first concern isn't necessarily the safety of the Republic, but the safety of his family and anyone who threatens it. And because he hasn't been delimbed and burnt to a crisp by Obi-Wan's command of the high ground, he has now fulfilled the prophecy and become one of the most powerful Force users in the entire galaxy, rivaled only by individuals like Palpatine. Living outside of the Jedi Order on a neutral planet would have given Obi Wan Kenobi a different perspective of the Galactic Civil War. Mandalorians like Satine saw the Republic as equally responsible for the start of the war.
It's obvious the Separatists are supporting the Death Watch.
I disagree. I told you I wanted to stay out of this conflict.
Given the current situation, I'm afraid that may no longer be possible.
Some might even see the Republic as the aggressors in the conflict. Removed from the situation, Obi Wan Kenobi can clearly see that the Jedi Order had become perverted and were serving as Palpatine's attack dogs. After surviving aggression from the Death Watch, Maul's criminal organizations, and even the Republic, Obi Wan Kenobi realizes the only way that Mandalore can preserve their sovereignty is by increasing their defenses. And having left the Jedi Order for her, Satine would have to give up her own pacifist beliefs and allow Obi Wan Kenobi to make the necessary preparations. The Mandalorian culture is deeply rooted in combat and warfare, and if they can survive Revan, the Sith Empire, and the Jedi, a bit of pacifism isn't all that hard to overcome. And Obi Wan Kenobi is very much the leader the Mandalorians have been waiting for and deserve. He's cool, calm, and collected, but a superior combatant and military leader as well, bringing with him all the benefits of being a Jedi. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian-led Council of Neutral Systems, which is made up of 1,500 different planets, also supplements their own defenses. While not as large as the Separatist Alliance, which contained several thousands of worlds, neutral systems have a distinct advantage of not being secretly controlled by Palpatine. As we discussed in previous videos, the Clone Army was clearly outnumbered by the larger and cheaper Separatist droid army, and only self-sabotage prevented the Confederacy from forcing the Republic to the negotiation table and ending the war. Remember, the Separatist Alliance didn't need to take over the Republic, they just needed to do enough damage to make the Republic allow them to leave. So we set the ground for a battle on Mandalore. Palpatine sends Anakin on another test of loyalty to take out his former master and friend, who has now assumed leadership of the planet's defense. But instead of being consumed by pure hatred and pain from getting his body chopped up into little pieces, Anakin is very much whole, both physically and mentally. His wife is alive, and he also has 2 kids. Now, I don't have any children of my own, but I've been told that when you do have kids, your perspective of the world changes completely along with your priorities. Anakin will have greatly matured now that he's a father, and he'll feel a lot more protective not only over his children and his family, but also his own life. With Obi Wan Kenobi in exile from the Jedi Order, the whole narrative that the Jedi are evil does not apply to him. So Anakin doesn't see a hated enemy or someone who's attempting to destroy his family, but an old friend and former master. Anakin can also relate to Obi Wan Kenobi's desire to keep Satine safe and away from the grasp of the Empire. So when Anakin arrives on Mandalore as a new father, he's a little hesitant about attacking Obi Wan Kenobi. He has no desire to get involved in this conflict. Meanwhile, Obi Wan Kenobi is ready to give his all to defend Satine and his newly adopted people from Imperial aggression. Now, the clone troopers are a force to be reckoned with, but as we all know, the Mandalorians were in a class of their own. it'll be very hard for the clone troopers to be able to beat them. With the invasion of Mandalore, something else very important happens. The Council of Neutral System also declares war on the Empire due to their mutual protection pact between them and Mandalore. And again, because they aren't secretly being controlled by a Sith Lord, their combined forces poses a great threat to the Imperial military. To make matters worse, many former Confederate worlds also joined the Mandalorians. And now the neutral systems and the Empire have plunged the galaxy once again into complete total chaos. And because Palpatine had been forced to prematurely purge his Jedi generals, his clone army is effectively leaderless for the moment. There are very few non-clone officers in the Republic military, and even the ones that are there need to be trained for leadership. The Imperial Academy system is also not in place yet, and at the same time Palpatine has moved away from using the Camino cloning system, which means no new clones are being produced either. The Empire will be facing a real war against a very determined enemy. And Palpatine will have to face some really hard decisions, like whether he'll force a draft of the civilian populace or maybe even use droids. Either way, the New Order starts off on very shaky ground. Anakin's clones will have been defeated by the superior Mandalorian forces, and he'll find himself face to face with Obi Wan Kenobi. Obi Wan Kenobi will sense some hesitation in his former Padawan. All Anakin really wants to do is get back to his family. And if anyone can turn him against Palpatine, it would be Obi Wan. Because again, they have a shared experience. They sacrificed everything for love. Anakin will have had enough time by now to really think about his relationship with Palpatine, and with Obi-Wan's help, he'll be able to see just how manipulative Palpatine was. He set up the entire galaxy to fight this war, killing billions if not trillions of people. He also murdered all the Jedi with the secretive Order 66. That doubt that's been growing inside of Anakin ever since he chopped off Mace Windu's arm is ready to explode and come to the surface. Palpatine, having sensed the confusion in his young apprentice, already made moves during Anakin's absence. He manages to get hold of Padme and Anakin's children and is hoping to use them for leverage. There are many things that can change the outcome of what happens in the prequel trilogy, and Obi-Wan Kenobi certainly had a huge part to play. The Council of Neutral Systems with proper leadership was too large of a threat for Palpatine to ignore. Anakin's emotions, while raw and chaotic, were the result of his lack of family as a child. But with the birth of his children, he's finally able to find some peace. And as powerful as his anger is, he becomes even more powerful in the pursuit of protecting the people that he loves. Especially with his old friend Obi-Wan Kenobi there by his side, tempering him. And all Obi-Wan Kenobi needed was some distance to see what the Jedi Order had become. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's scenario. I left the ending open for you guys to figure out what happens. I'd love to see you guys discuss it down in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.